They didn't even stop laughing when they sped off. The dust from their tires hadn't settled yet, and I was already standing there alone, holding a duffel bag like some idiot fresh off a bus to nowhere. The outpost behind me looked like it hadn't seen a living soul in decades. Sagging porch, busted shutters, and a rusted wind gauge barely spinning in the dry Nevada wind. I didn't say a word. I just watched them go, taillights bouncing across the desert road until they disappeared into the sun. My name's Eric. I'm 31. I used to live in Sacramento. Now I was 200 miles from anything resembling a Starbucks or a cell signal, left behind at what they called a career development retreat. What a joke. The last time they tried to sign me up for one of these, I bailed last minute, blamed food poisoning. But 6 months ago, my supervisor, Lauren, cornered me in her glass office with that fake cheerful tone she used when she was about to screw someone over. Said this was a growth opportunity, that it'd look good on my file. I should have known. They flew us out in 2 company trucks, stuffed to the roof with camping gear and supply crates. Felt weird from the start. No one talked much. The only sound was the occasional fake chuckle when Lauren cracked one of her forced jokes. Everyone kept checking their watches like they were on some secret countdown. That was the first red flag. The second was when we stopped at this broken-down research station and they started unloading gear labeled long-term. I said, "Wait, how long are we staying out here?" Lauren just smiled and said, "As long as it takes you to learn." Then they piled back into the trucks and left. They actually drove off laughing, like this was summer camp and I'd just been pantsed in front of the whole cabin. I didn't yell or run after them. I didn't beg. I just walked up the cracked steps of the porch, dropped my bag, and sat down on the splintered bench. The sun was dropping fast, throwing long shadows across the dust. It should have felt like the worst day of my life. Instead, it felt like the first breath I'd taken in years. No buzzing emails. No surprise meetings. No Lauren. I watched the road until there was nothing left to see. Then I stood up, stretched, and walked through the front door without looking back. The front door groaned loud as hell when I pushed it open. Inside smelled like dried mud, sun-bleached paper, and something faintly metallic, like old nails or blood that had dried 50 years ago. I flicked the wall switch out of habit. Nothing. No surprise there. Light streamed in through dusty windows, catching floating bits of whatever had been sitting in the air all this time. First thing I did was check for supplies. Place had clearly been left in a hurry by whoever last lived here, probably some poor government-funded grad student from the 70s. Kitchenette in the corner with a rusted propane stove, 3 dented pots, and a drawer full of mismatched silverware. Pantry was mostly empty, except for a half-used jar of instant coffee and a couple cans of chili that looked old enough to vote. In the back room, I found what looked like an old workshop, pegboard with missing tools, workbench, shelves full of busted gear. Tucked in a corner was a yellow plastic bin with a cracked lid. Inside, rope, flares, a water filter, and a half-full first aid kit. Good enough to not die for a few days. Still not a damn phone signal, but I checked my GPS just in case. The blue dot blinked right where I was, coordinates stamped across the bottom like it was daring me to make a move. I kept going, stepping into what used to be an office. 2 old metal filing cabinets, both locked. I wedged one open with a screwdriver and nearly cut my hand on a rusted edge. Inside were folders, maps, and journals stacked tight and yellowed with time. One was labeled, Desert Mammal Tracking 1981. Another had field notes written in blocky handwriting, dated week by week. The kind of stuff you don't fake. These were real scientists once. People who weren't trying to screw each other over for a promotion. My phone buzzed. A text from Lauren. "Let us know when you're ready to admit what you've learned." Didn't even open it. Just stared at the preview until the screen dimmed again. A few minutes later, another one popped through. "There's a ranger station 18 miles west if you feel like hiking." That's when it hit me. This wasn't some last-minute stunt or weird team-building gimmick. They'd mapped this out, studied the area, knew the range, knew how far I could walk before quitting. Hell, they probably had bets going on how long I'd last. I opened the front door again, walked outside, and grabbed 2 logs from the half-rotted firewood stack by the porch. The fire pit had a ring of stones and ashes still inside. Someone had used it not that long ago. I stacked the wood, lit it with one of the flares, and sat back on a metal chair I dragged out from the kitchen. Creaked but held. Dinner was a can of chili and a stale granola bar. I ate every bite like I hadn't had food in a week. The wind picked up after dark, dry and sharp, carrying the sound of nothing. No traffic, no sirens, no people talking in the apartment next door. Inside, the cot was crooked but stable. I tossed my duffel next to it, pulled my hoodie tight, and lay down without a second thought. No deep meaning, no dramatic moment of clarity. Just tired bones and an empty inbox. Let them play their little game. I wasn't going anywhere. By morning, the wind had died down. Everything was still. Not peaceful, just quiet in that kind of way that made your ears ring. I stretched, grabbed what was left of the chili for breakfast, and walked around back to see what else they left behind. That's when I saw it. A small garage half buried in dirt, padlocked but leaning like a drunk uncle. The chain was rusted to hell, but the lock popped open after a few good swings with a pipe I found near the porch. Hinges screamed when I pulled the doors apart. Inside was an old ATV, tucked under a sun-faded blue tarp, thick with dust, but the tires still had air and the seat wasn't cracked. Felt like finding treasure. Fuel cans sat along the wall next to a broken shovel, a dead lantern, and a half-empty jug of motor oil. Whoever used to run this place must have kept it ready for emergencies. I spent the next 6 hours bringing that thing back to life. Cleaned the carb with a toothbrush. Swapped the battery with a solar charger rig I built from an old panel I found in the storage shed. Drained the gas tank, poured in the good fuel, and kicked the starter until my hand cramped. It coughed, sputtered, then roared like a pissed-off chainsaw. Tires kicked up a wall of dust as I peeled out of there, flying across the desert with nothing but wind and adrenaline in my face. No GPS needed. I followed the ridgeline west, like the old maps suggested. About 12 miles out, the sand gave way to cracked pavement, and then a sign. Welcome to Red Rock. Pop 312. The whole town fit in one blink. A gas station with faded Pepsi signs. An auto shop with one lift. And a cafe sitting on the corner, screen door swinging every time someone walked in or out. I parked the ATV near the side and walked in, smelling bacon, coffee, and lemon-scented floor cleaner. Guy behind the counter looked mid-60s, gray hair slicked back, flannel rolled up at the sleeves. Name tag said Walt. He was flipping pancakes like it was muscle memory. Need a menu, or you just wandering through? He asked, not even looking up. I shrugged. Something like a sabbatical. That made him pause. He turned, gave me a quick once-over. You don't look corporate. You look tired. I gave a small laugh. I'm between things. He grunted. Aren't we all? Coffee? Yeah, thanks. He poured without asking how I liked it, then nodded toward the empty kitchen. You know how to cook? Better than I know how to sit in meetings. He snorted. My line cook quit last week. Wife dragged him to Utah. You want the job, it's early mornings, breakfast and lunch. Cash. Meals included. Just like that. I looked around. Regulars sipping coffee, a waitress popping gum and refilling creamers, sun pouring through the windows like someone actually paid the power bill on time. It wasn't glamorous, but it felt solid. Real. I stuck out my hand. I'm in. He shook it. Start tomorrow. Don't be late. I left the cafe with a sack of groceries balanced across the back of the ATV and a smile I didn't mean to have. It wasn't much: eggs, flour, canned soup, a jug of milk, and some bacon Walt threw in on the house. Said it was part of the benefits package. I didn't argue. The sun was low when I made it back to the outpost, tires crunching over gravel as I pulled around back and killed the engine. Air was still hot, but dry enough to breathe easy. I hauled the bags inside and set everything on the warped counter, then plugged my phone into the little solar charger I rigged on the porch. It buzzed to life like it had been waiting to unload on me. 42 missed texts. Most were from Lauren. A few were from other teammates, the usual jokers now trying to sound concerned. Some of the messages were fake cheerful, like I was just late coming back from lunch. Others leaned passive-aggressive fast. Hope you're finding yourself out there. This is childish. Just come back already. Lauren says we can smooth this over if you show a little humility. We left you space to grow. Don't waste it. I deleted them all. Every last one. Then I held the power button and turned the phone off again. It didn't feel dramatic. It felt necessary. The next morning, I was back at the cafe at 6 sharp, apron tied, hair still wet from washing up in the outpost's rusted sink. Walt grunted a greeting, tossed me a spatula, and pointed at the grill. You screw up my hash browns, we fight, he said. I didn't screw them up. By day 3, I had the morning routine down. Eggs cracked with one hand, toast flipped with the other. Locals came in dusty trucks and faded ball caps. Same faces each morning, same orders. A couple desert tourists wandered through now and then, asking where the nearest crystal shop was or how to get to some dried-up hot spring. Walt handled them with a grunt and a smirk. I handled the plates. Midweek, a guy named Danny started sitting at the corner stool every morning. Late 30s, tan like leather, always in paint-stained jeans and work boots. You the new guy? He asked one morning, nodding toward the back. Depends who's asking. He smirked. Name's Danny. Do cleanup and light demo for a few of the contractors around here. Could use an extra pair of hands. I raised an eyebrow. Cash? Of course. I didn't say yes right away, but I showed up that Saturday. The work was simple. Tearing out old tile from a diner that had been closed since 2009. Sweating under the desert sun. Hauling debris to a dumpster. Eating sandwiches on the tailgate of his truck. No meetings. No passive-aggressive emails. Just work that made sense. My back ached, but my head felt clear for once. By Sunday, I realized something I hadn't said out loud yet. I didn't miss a damn thing about my old job. Not the building. Not the free LaCroix in the break room. Not the way Lauren used to tilt her head like she was disappointed before you even opened your mouth. My phone stayed off. I rode the ATV into town each morning and back again at night. Groceries in one hand, gear strapped behind me. Cooked dinner over the fire pit, listened to the wind, and read through the old journals I found in the filing cabinets like bedtime stories from another life. Sleep came easy, deep, dreamless. Nobody breathing down my neck. Nobody trying to mold me into their next success story. Just me, my hands, and enough work to earn my dinner. 10 days in, I turned the phone back on just to see what kind of hell was waiting. It didn't disappoint. The notifications came in waves. First the texts, too many to count, stacked one on top of the other like dominoes. Then the voicemails. Then the missed calls. All from Lauren, a few from the others. Same names, different versions of the same guilt trip. We're worried. You're blowing this out of proportion. This is how people grow, Eric. No one meant to hurt you. Sure. I stood in the doorway of the outpost, holding the phone like it might catch fire, scrolling through messages that all somehow sounded like her voice. Then the screen lit up, incoming call. Lauren. I stared at it for a second. Then I hit accept. She didn't waste time. Eric. Finally. I've been trying to reach you for over a week. I noticed. She let out a short sigh, the kind that always came before a lecture. Look, this was never meant to push you away. It was a lesson, a challenge. You're supposed to take something from it. I did, I said, and I'm not coming back. There was silence on the other end. Not static, just stunned silence. You're serious, dead serious. She paused. That's dramatic, Eric. You need to face the real world at some point. You can't hide out in the desert forever. I stepped outside. Sun on my face, hands still covered in drywall dust from helping Danny patch a ceiling earlier that day. This is more real than anything I did in that office, I said. I've got work, actual work. I'm learning new skills. I sleep better. I eat better. I don't sit in fake meetings pretending to care about your development spreadsheets. You're angry. I'm not. I cut in. That's the thing. I'm clear. She raised her voice, just enough to sound like she still had control. You're throwing away your future. We invested in you. You had a track, path, and now you're just, what, cleaning grease traps and pounding nails in the desert. You don't get it, I said, calm now. You think I ran away. I didn't. I finally stopped running towards something that wasn't mine. That's not how careers work. That's not how adults operate. Her voice cracked, just for a second. That's when I knew this wasn't about me leaving. This was about her losing control. You're abandoning everything we built together, she said, cold now. You're walking away from your team, from your goals. You're being selfish. Maybe, I said, or maybe I just stopped being useful to you the second I stopped needing your approval. There was another long pause. Then came the tone shift, the one she used when she was cornered but refused to show it. Don't make this harder than it has to be. Just come back. We can process this like adults. I looked around the desert, the outpost, the ATV, the old fire pit still smoldering from last night's wood. I already did. Then I hung up. Didn't wait for her to call back. Didn't wait for more messages. I pressed the power button until the screen went black, then dropped the phone onto the cot like it was nothing but trash I forgot to throw out. Outside, the sky was bleeding orange and gold again. Another quiet night coming. No more lectures. No more plans I didn't make. No more pretending. I grabbed a wrench, walked out back, and started helping Danny fix the tailgate on his truck. Danny handed me a hammer and said, "If you hit your thumb, don't cry about it." That was my first lesson. Every weekend, I started working with him on local jobs. Out in the sun, boots sinking into sand, sweat soaking through the back of my shirt by noon. We patched drywall, replaced siding, reinforced cracked foundations. Most of the homes out here were beat to hell by wind, dust, and time. Nothing fancy, but they needed fixing. And we did it. "Grip the trowel like this," he said one Saturday, showing me how to pour concrete without making a mess. Smooth motion. Think like you're icing a cake, only heavier and hotter, and no one gives a damn if it looks pretty. He taught me how to strip wires, hang doors, reset fence posts. My hands were covered in cuts and blisters, but I didn't care. I was learning things I could see and touch, not just write up in some status report for people who barely remembered my name. "You've got a feel for this," he said after a couple weekends. "Don't waste it." That stuck with me more than it should have. Maybe because it was the first honest compliment I'd heard in months. No agenda, no strings, just fact. That night, I sat outside the outpost, watching the fire throw sparks into the dark, thinking about what it would mean to stick around longer. Not just survive. Build something. Not on someone else's timeline or under someone else's thumb. Of course, the peace didn't last. I plugged the phone in just to charge the solar rig. Didn't even mean to check it, and it lit up like a landmine. Voicemails from Lauren. Not friendly anymore. The tone had changed. Snapped clean. "You're being reckless. You think this is real life? It's a fantasy, Eric. You're not just hurting your future. You're destroying it." One message actually said, "You don't get to be happy out there. That's not how this works." That one made me laugh. Loud. She couldn't stand it. That I'd walked out and didn't come crawling back. That I was fine without her mentorship. Better even. I didn't respond. Didn't even listen to the rest. I just turned the phone off and tossed it in the drawer under the sink. Next morning, Danny picked me up in his truck before sunrise. "I got a shed to reframe out by the mesa. Pays cash," he said. "You in?" "Yeah," I said, climbing in. We rode in silence for a few miles. Then he glanced over. "You ever think about doing this full-time?" "I've thought about it. I could use the help. Hell, I got more work than I can handle." "You pick things up quick. You're not lazy. Most guys your age don't want to sweat." I didn't answer right away. Just watched the desert roll by. Low hills, prickly shrubs, old utility poles leaning sideways like they gave up years ago. "You offering me a job?" I asked. "I'm offering to teach you a trade. One you can own. No ladder. No boss breathing down your neck. Just skill, tools, time." That sat heavy in my chest. I used to sit in glass conference rooms trying to decode half-baked buzzwords on whiteboards, trying to smile through someone else's ambition. trying not to lose my mind while pretending to care about strategic synergy. Now I was learning how to build walls, lay tile, patch roofs, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel replaceable. That night, after we finished the shed and split a couple sodas in the truck bed, I rode the ATV back to the outpost under a violet sky. Dust rose behind me like smoke from a fuse line. I wasn't sure yet, not completely, but I was starting to picture it. Not just making it work out here, but making it mine. I didn't wake up one day and decide to burn it all down, but I sure as hell wasn't letting them take it back. The next week, I rode the ATV to the edge of town, parked it behind the gas station, and hitched a ride into Reno with one of Danny's supply guys. 2 hours of cracked highways and old classic rock before we hit city limits. First stop, courthouse. I walked in wearing dusty jeans and a clean t-shirt, filled out the residency paperwork, and waited in a room that smelled like printer toner and stale air. 30 minutes later, I had a state ID with my new address. Route 6, Parcel 114, Red Rock, NV. Next was the bank. I opened a checking account with cash from the cafe and job sites. No questions, no looks, just a couple forms and a routing number. Then I stopped by the UPS store and set up mail forwarding. Permanent box, real street address, no loopholes. Last stop was a law office 2 blocks off Main, sandwiched between a dentist and a vape shop. Woman at the front desk had tired eyes and red nails that clicked on the keyboard. I gave her the rundown quickly, clearly, no fluff. 10 minutes later, I was sitting across from a lawyer named Cynthia. Mid-40s, sharp eyes, sharper voice. She wore black slacks and a navy blazer like she meant business even on autopilot. "Let me get this straight," she said, after I explained everything. "They left you in the desert for a professional growth exercise?" "Yeah. Without your consent?" "They called it a development opportunity. But they knew I didn't want to go." She blinked. "And now they're trying to contact you? Pressure you to return. They've ramped it up lately. I think they're panicking." Cynthia leaned back, crossed her arms. "You're not crazy. You're not a threat to yourself or others. And you've taken steps to establish residency and employment. If they try to force you back or interfere, we can absolutely push back." She drafted 2 cease and desist letters. One to the company, one directly to Lauren. She also included a mental competency affidavit, just in case they tried to pull any stunt about me being unstable or unfit. "This is airtight," she said, sliding the papers across the desk. "You're not asking for money, just space. That'll work in your favor." "I'm not trying to ruin them," I said. "I just want them gone." A week later, they showed up. It was a Friday morning. I was fixing the screen door on the cafe's back entrance when Walt came outside wiping his hands on a towel. "You've got visitors," he said. "Look corporate." I walked out front and there they were. Lauren, 2 senior staffers I hadn't seen in months, and the company's HR rep, a woman named Jolene, who used to email me calendar invites like she was allergic to actual conversation. Oh, and they brought a career counselor. Some guy with round glasses and a manila folder full of buzzwords. Lauren stepped forward like she was leading a charity walk. "Eric, we just want to talk." "Yeah," I said. "I've got something to show you first." I pulled the envelope from my back pocket, handed it straight to Jolene. She opened it, started reading, and her eyebrows immediately pulled tight. The counselor took his copy and skimmed it like he was flipping through a brochure at a car dealership. "I'm a legal resident here now," I said. "I've got work, housing, a bank account, and mental competency verified by an attorney. You're done showing up uninvited." The counselor cleared his throat. He seemed stable, functional, engaged. Jolene didn't say a word. She just looked at Lauren. Lauren, of course, wasn't done. "You're throwing everything away," she said, stepping closer. "You had a future, Eric. Path. We believed in you." I didn't flinch. "I'm building something better." She stared at me like she didn't recognize who I was anymore. Maybe she didn't. I turned, walked back into the cafe, and let the screen door slam shut behind me. They came back a week later. No warning this time. I was out back at the outpost, laying fresh gravel by the water tank when I saw the SUV kicking up dust down the trail. Same company rental they always used for field visits. I stood up, wiped my hands on my jeans, and waited. 3 doors opened. Lauren stepped out first. Tight ponytail, sharp sunglasses, jaw locked like she'd been rehearsing this since the last time. Behind her were 2 of my old teammates, Chris and Melanie. Chris had his usual smug face on, like he was doing me a favor by showing up. Melanie looked tired, or maybe just unsure. Lauren didn't waste time. "We need to talk." "Already did," I said, voice flat. "We're not here to fight," she said, holding up her hands like she was being reasonable. "We're here because we care. You matter to us, Eric." Chris chimed in. "This doesn't have to be the end of anything. We just want to understand what went wrong." I raised an eyebrow. "You abandoned me in the middle of nowhere." Lauren shook her head. "It wasn't abandonment. It was a structured challenge. A push. Call it what you want. It was a stunt." She stepped forward. "You were coasting. You had potential and you weren't using it. We were trying to help you wake up. And who made you the judge of my life?" That cracked her. She dropped the calm voice and snapped. "Because you were a nobody," she barked. "We were trying to make you into something." Silence. Even Chris flinched. That was it. The line that changed everything. She didn't even realize what she'd said. Not right away. She was too used to talking like that behind closed doors. I stared at her, eyes locked. "There it is." She shifted. "That's not what I meant." "Yeah, it is. You just don't like that I heard it." Melanie tried to cut in, voice soft. "Lauren, maybe we should." But Lauren kept going. "You were stagnant, Eric. You sat in meetings like a ghost. We were trying to push you toward something better. We saw what you could be." "No. You saw what you wanted me to be." Chris folded his arms. "So what, you think you're better than us now?" I looked him dead in the face. "No. Just better without you." They didn't have a comeback. Lauren's face went red. Not embarrassment. Anger. The kind that bubbles up when control slips through your fingers. She stepped toward me like she still had something to say, but then Melanie touched her arm. "Let's go," Melanie said quietly. "He's not coming back." Lauren looked at her like she'd betrayed the tribe, then turned to me one last time. "You're making a huge mistake." I shrugged. "Feels like the opposite." They got back in the SUV without another word. Doors slammed, tires spun, dust flew. I stood there and watched them disappear, just like the first time. Only this time they weren't smug. They weren't laughing. They were rattled. Because I didn't yell. I didn't explain. I didn't break. I just stood my ground. And that, more than anything, scared the hell out of them. When the trail finally cleared, I picked up my shovel and went right back to work. Sun beating down on my shoulders, gravel crunching under my boots. Clearer than ever. The bank called me sir when I handed them the check. Didn't think I'd hear that word in this lifetime. But there I was, sweaty from the job site, still wearing my tool belt, signing papers to buy the outpost outright. Cash deal. No mortgage. No one else's name on the deed. Took 3 more months of side work to get it livable. New wiring, new roof, fresh paint. Sealed up the windows that used to rattle every time the wind kicked up. Turned the old lab room into a bedroom. The back office became a kitchen. The storage shed? Full-blown tool locker. People around town started calling me for everything. Drywall repairs, roof patching, fence work, even a few small builds. Word got around. Walt kept my number taped to the cafe register like a business card. "Eric's your guy," he told one tourist with a flat tire. "Don't let the face fool you. He's dependable." That was high praise coming from him. The money came steady. Nothing flashy, just solid. More than what I pulled in back at the firm, and this time I kept every dollar. No meetings. No politics. Just hard work and straight pay. Walt retired not long after. Closed the cafe one afternoon, handed me the keys without saying much. Said he didn't have the patience anymore. Asked if I wanted it. I thanked him, then bought the building and turned it into a full-time workshop. Kept the stove, though. Something about that grill felt too personal to rip out. The anniversary came fast. 12 months to the day since they dumped me here and drove off like it was a joke. I didn't mark it on the calendar. I just knew. My bones remembered. So I threw a cookout. Nothing fancy, just burgers, dogs, beer, and music from an old speaker I found at a yard sale. Locals came out. Danny brought his crew. Melanie even sent a card, which I didn't expect. Said she hoped I was doing okay. That meant something. We filled the yard with folding chairs and mismatched tables. Kids ran around with popsicles. One guy brought fireworks even though they were technically illegal out here. I stood by the grill, flipping patties, shaking hands, making small talk. Not for show, but because I actually gave a damn. It wasn't about proving anything. It wasn't revenge. It was community. Mine. Night came and the fire pit lit up the porch. I sat with a cold drink and a full plate, boots up on the rail, smoke curling into the dark. Then the phone buzzed. Just one message. Hope you're happy. From a number I hadn't seen in a long time. Lauren. I stared at it for a second. No emotion. No wait. Just words. I typed one word back. Very. Then I deleted her number for good. The stars were out heavy that night. No light pollution. No traffic hum. Just wide open silence and the kind of sky they don't even teach city kids to look for anymore. I leaned back in my chair, fire warming my legs, and listened to the night. Finally, no one owned my time. No one pulled my strings. No one told me who I was supposed to be. This was mine now. All of it. The fire had burned down to embers when it finally hit me. They really thought they could break me. That was the whole point, wasn't it? Stick me out here. Let me panic. Watch me crawl back with my tail tucked and a new attitude. That was the game. The plan. The little leadership experiment they probably toasted over wine once I was out of sight. Only it backfired. They gave me the one thing I never had under their thumb: silence. Space. Time to hear myself think. I wasn't even angry anymore. Not at Lauren, not at the team, not at the company that signed off on it all. I was just done. Completely, finally done. They wanted me humbled. I walked away whole. Before all this, I was the guy who stayed late to make a slide deck shine. The guy who apologized before he even disagreed. Who checked every sentence for tone, every email for edge. Always trying to impress people who saw me as a project, not a person. Now people come to me because they trust my work. They pay on time. They shake my hand, ask for my opinion, bring their trucks by the workshop like it actually matters I'm the one fixing them. I'm respected, needed, and fully in control of what happens next. They used to joke that this trip would toughen me up, that I'd come back refined, that they were teaching me a lesson. They were right about one thing. I did learn something, just not what they planned. I learned that I don't need anyone to define who I am. I don't need a mentor who treats me like a stray dog she can mold into something useful. I don't need validation from people who saw my hesitation as weakness. They called it a growth opportunity. Turns out I didn't just find my backbone. I built a whole life around it. I'm not their project anymore. I'm my own man. And that's the punchline they never saw coming. They made me stronger, just not in a way they can benefit from. The joke wasn't just on me. It was on them all along.